Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Vox Starks. Hey guys, I hope that you're doing really well in this present moment, whenever and wherever you are on the globe. But I want to encourage you also to set aside a few moments here and there to dream up your best possible future. Instead of worrying about the future and worrying about this bill and that bill or where you're going to live or what you're going to do, I want you to think about the best possible outcome of a scenario or situation. So, if you're dating someone and you really care about them and you want to be with them, for example, this is something I used to do when I was dating. When I was really young, I had in my mind, I created my most perfect house in my imagination. It doesn't exist. I even drew it. Sometimes I would draw it and color it, like paint it with watercolor or colored pencils. But it was this beautiful house in the forest, and I had like the steps leading up to the house and the porch and how perfect it would be. Like little birds in the trees and whatever. And even though I never got a house like that, I drew that to symbolize my ultimate place to live, like out in nature, where I know I could feed the deer, I could see the pretty bluebirds, blue jays. I love scrub jays. They're just the coolest birds ever. So I would always imagine that I'm going to live in a house that's that or something better, either way. And then when I would meet somebody, I would try to imagine if they're in my house with me, or do they stand out on the street? They're not allowed on my sidewalk, on my property. It was like kind of a strange way of going about it. But most of the guys that I dated, I couldn't even put them on the sidewalk in my mind. When I met my husband and I first met him, he was on the porch. My first husband, I tried to imagine him in the house with me. I could only see him on the porch or right before the porch going up the steps. But when I met my husband that I was with for 13 years, I saw him in the house with me. That's how I knew he was the guy. He was the right one for the time. So that was a crazy visualization, but it always worked every time. And I knew by where I can imagine them in the house, I knew how I felt about them. It was a very strange way of going about it, but it was a way for me to test my feelings about a person or a situation. So, for example, if I meet somebody and I like them, I try to imagine if I'm comfortable going to their place and spending the night. Would I be comfortable waking up with that person, looking into that face? And if the answer is yes, then my next step is, well, what if I have them in my house? And then I imagine them being here. And if I'm really uncomfortable emotionally with having to make them breakfast in the morning or waking up to them or dressing in front of them, then I know they're not the guy. And forget it, right? I've never invited a man to my house, into this apartment for like 18 months. I've had a guy that I was seeing was like the manager here, so he had already been in the house. He's the one that showed me the place, but I never. We dated I can't say dated. We went out 6 times, and then now he left. He left, moved to another city. But so whatever you're wanting to do, like maybe your goal is for a business, but you don't know what kind of business it is. So I want you to imagine you're waking up in the most ideal situation, and when you imagine yourself waking up to start working, is it in your home? Do you get in a car or do you walk? So you got to think about that. And then you have to ask yourself questions like, what is it that I love the most? Do I like to be indoors or out of doors? Do I like to work independently of other people? Or do I want to work with a lot of people around me? Or maybe I want to provide a service where I work with people for a limited time, but for the most part, I have a lot of free time. You got to ask yourself these questions, because that will kind of help you know where you're going. Imagine you're making however much money you want to make. So what kind of a job or career or business would get you that kind of money, So you can put yourself in your most perfect lifestyle. Is it living very simply, living off the land, growing your own food? And how do you reverse engineer something like that to get to it? Are you on top of an apartment building? You have the penthouse suite and you've got your own private swimming pool and your helipad and you're living in Paris. That might be what you want. So you have to look at that, reverse engineer it. And then today make one small step every day towards that goal, no matter what it is. So if you can imagine something, and then imagine. So I was just watching Millennials. I don't know if you've seen this, really crazy. It's like a telenovela for the modern age about people in Buenos Aires. And in one of the episodes, this guy, Juanmo, his name is Juanmo, and Juanmo said, I've been really thinking about my life. I worked, and he's like, I had my girlfriend, he was engaged to be married, and then, I'm not going to spoiler alert, but that didn't work out, basically, and then he ended up making some money, and he has got enough money to survive for a very long time. And he was telling his friends, like, I feel like now I want to start getting my life in order. I want to have peace in every area of my life. And I thought that was a really good line. That was good, at least that was good writing. Some of the writing in the show, I'm like, oh my God, amateurs, but some of it's realistic, some of it's like totally not, but some of it's just boring. I kind of wish I could write on the show, though, to be honest, because I do like the show. But I feel like that was a really good insight, though, because you kind of need to get your ducks all lined up in a row. And if you're in a situation, if you're living in a place where you didn't really ever want to live there, and you're there now, and you moved there for somebody, and you're with that somebody, are you really happy with that somebody? Did they hold you back? Or were you able to change your dream because where you live is actually better than where you imagined you would be? Like say you imagined yourself living in the suburbs of Los Angeles, but you fell in love and now you're living in San Francisco, and you're waking up every day feeling the fog on your face and looking out over the bay, and around 2 or 3 in the afternoon when the fog burns off and the pretty sparkling glistening diamonds of the ocean meet your eyes as you look around. I mean, for me, that's like one of my ideal spots. I love San Francisco. For me to have a penthouse there, that was one of my, it was like kind of a possibility area, like, oh yeah, that would be awesome. I'm not opposed to Beverly Hills either, because there's a lot of places I miss, going down there. I love, there's a lot of places I miss going to, and museums, and just, I love LA. I love it, but I don't really want to live there full time, right? And San Francisco, the earthquake thing bugs me. I have earthquakes here. Obviously, everyone has earthquakes if you're on the Pacific Rim, but I don't know, so I'm like thinking, oh yeah, well, all right, what is my perfect spot? Well, so far so good with Ecuador. I feel like this is my ideal perfect spot. I really loved living in Detroit. It was really a nice city as far as museums and the symphony and going to the zoo. The zoo was unparalleled. It was so beautiful. One of the most beautiful zoos I've ever been to. And I like the zoo here, but it's a hike. I mean, the zoo here, it's like a 5-hour hike up a frickin' mountain. Like literally, it's like a dirt road. There's nothing really paved about it. You're hiking up with rickety, there's like rickety railings. And it's like there's some rewards. Like when you get to certain points, you get to see, you know, the lions, and you can rest and watch the ocelots or the lions, or, you know, there's like a part where you get to pet the deers, and there's a part where you get to go inside with the birds. So it's like super interactive with the animals. You actually get to touch them. It's really cool. I like that. And I also like the fact that they have every poisonous snake in Ecuador. So it's nice to know what to avoid. So you go in the snake house going, don't touch any of those snakes. You see them in the wild. But no, I like the things in Detroit, but I don't want to settle there forever. It's super cold for 3 months. That's not a big deal. It's not like Minnesota where you start taking people hostage and you want to kill everyone in sight. Okay, no, I didn't want to do that, but a few people did when I was there. That actually happened. It was so cold that they couldn't take it. It was just like, that's it. You know, people go crazy there, especially at the very top part of Minnesota. It's just very much cursed land, and it's yuck. It's a yuck energy. But I don't know. I mean, I love the United States. There's a lot of beautiful places. I was watching glamping. Oh my gosh. Today I was with my son. We're watching ideas for glamping, because my son keeps talking about camping, and he bought a tent, and he really loves the outdoors and nature. And we were trying to reverse engineer his perfect life. And I'm like, you know, what if, you know, you could have a business of your own where you were helping people and you were outdoors? Like you could be a tour guide, or you could lead hikes, like big hikes, you know, where you hike for a whole day and then set up a camp, and then you sleep in the tents, and then in the morning you break camp and keep going on the hike. And, you know, like that kind of thing would be kind of cool. You know, it's not for me personally, because I like to glamp. And my son's like, what do you mean by that? What is glamping? And so we were watching videos. I'm like, well, I want you to see it, because the tents are enormous, and we could see what kind of tents they use. Because what if we were able to set up a tent? Like if we bought some land overlooking a valley or with a massively beautiful view of the mountains, it would be really cool to have a really, really nice tent. We could put real good furniture inside, but it looks on the outside just looks like a weird tent. Like, oh, well, that's weird. They live in a tent, you know? And so we started looking into it, and I got the idea, whoa, what if I had a glamping campground? A glamp ground. So we started talking about like, oh, that would be good, because we get to be outside, outdoors in nature. We provide a service for people a little bit, but for the most part, we leave the people alone. They leave us alone. Everyone's enjoying the view, but it's not a lot of interaction. There's a lot of downtime, so I could do my show, I can write my books, I can take classes online, which I love to do, and that might be kind of an ideal situation. So we start kind of tossing around some ideas about it. Like that would be, you know, we could add some activities, not just hiking, but maybe we could add, you know, stuff for children, like swing sets that are so sturdy that adults can go on them. Then I could float. I love to swing on a swing set. It's like so funny, but it's one of my favorite things since I was a kid. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be so fun. You know, what if we had like a little teeny tiny man-made pond that's not very deep, and so families with really itty bitty kids can go on like on a canoe. It might be fun. It'd be exciting, but no one's gonna get hurt. No one's gonna drown. There won't be any piranhas. It'll be like a swimming pool. You know, and then we started looking into growing our own food. Well, there's ways to grow food without dirt, I found out today. And these huge towers, I'm like, now that's a good one. That's a really, really amazing thing. So we've just been trying to think about what kind of a life do we want? And like, do we really want to live in the city? We love the city. Do we really want to live in the countryside? Will we feel too isolated? Maybe we want to work towards a goal of doing both. Maybe we could live part-time in the city and part-time in the countryside. Maybe we could find a smaller city where we feel like we're doing a little bit of both. You know, so we've been like, my son and I have been kind of thinking about it like, do Do we want to co-create a life together? Or is he going to leave when he's 18 and forge a path on his own? We've actually started thinking about, in a couple years when we have the money gathered, that we might continue to travel together. Like, we might really enjoy walking the Camino in Spain, and we might enjoy, traveling throughout Asia, going to Bali, going to Thailand, checking out Vietnam, going to Hong Kong, going to the shopping district in Hong Kong. We're thinking about, I really want to go to Morocco. I want to buy rugs and lamps and the exotic spices. The spice markets in Morocco are amazing. I've looked into all this stuff. I'm like, I'm like an armchair traveler. I moved to another country and I'm here now and I want to stay here, but I still want to travel a lot. So if that's my future and I'm going to travel a lot, I could still do my podcast. And for me, this is it's like a perfect business, even though I don't really consider it. I consider it kind of a business, but I'm making almost $3 a day now. So thank you guys for listening. I make about a penny, 1.7 pennies per listen. So it's not a ton right now. I'm getting there. But my ideal life is that this takes off and enough people listen where I could be free, and then I could go to all places all over the world and, do my show from temples and exotic places and tell you guys spiritual stories that I hear on the road from other people, and maybe interview people around the world. That would be, for me, kind of an ideal thing, like to stay home most of the time, but a couple months a year, just get on the road and go to India and talk to them about the sex temples, or, about the spirits of the Ganges rivers. Like, maybe there's ghosts that hang out there, So I've thought about it a lot, like, what would I want to do? What kind of a business? Maybe I want a hotel. Maybe I want a glamp ground. Maybe I want both. Maybe I could do both. Maybe I could get a hotel, get it going, make it super new agey, and fill it up with enormous crystals and raise the vibration so high that only the highest vibration people can go there. And it would be like a, not really healing retreat, but it would be some place where people would be like, oh, I can't wait to come back. I felt so good being here. And maybe after I get that done and it could keep running on its own, and then I go make the glamp ground. Maybe I could live in both places. So I'm tossing around a lot of ideas. I'm not really sure what I want to do. And I'm waiting for my twin to come into my life. And once he comes into my life and we are official, then we can start talking about the life we want to co-create together. So I'm leaving my options open for that. So whatever it is that you want to do in your life, you have to keep your options open, because you can't really plan for all contingencies, because life always throws you surprises. Sometimes they're bad surprises. Sometimes there's accidents and goofs, but sometimes life really surprises you and really good and wonderful things come your way that you had no idea. So before you spend any moments worrying about the future, I want to encourage you guys just to imagine the best possible life for yourself and focus on that in your idle moments when you're tired of being here now. Have a little fantasy of the future. What does your body look like? Maybe you are a little thinner, or maybe you are a lot more muscular. Maybe your hair is shorter. Maybe your hair is longer. Maybe you have a couple more tattoos. You could look at like small things like that, or you can look at, what kind of a love do you want if you're single? Like me, I always think of all the things I wish my love would do for me when I have one. Like the way he will kiss me, the way he'll hug me. I don't really think about the other stuff so much, but, the way that we will work together cooperatively as true partners. How we might not have a division of labor like in traditional households where I'm the woman, so I do these jobs, and you're the man, so you do those jobs. I'm kind of hoping for a lifestyle in which I can pay for a maid to take care of all the things, and I can maybe have a nutritionist come in and make our meals, or at least, get us on the right track so we both are eating optimally for our health. I'd like to have a pool boy clean my pool, for example. And I think about these things like, oh, what day am I going to have the pool boy come over? Like, I think about weird details like that. As a Virgo, I think of detailed stuff that I probably shouldn't. But I imagine, what's the temperature of my swimming pool going to be? When I'm swimming, it's going to be like a bath water. It's going to be slightly cool. So I have to really work hard to warm up, which means I'm going to get more exercise. I think about these things all the time. Like, not all the time, but I try to focus here, now, present moment. What are we going to do today? What needs to be done right now? Maybe I could listen to a YouTube video while I'm cleaning the kitchen, and then I could be present in what I'm doing, but also I could see what's happening with the impeachment. So I'm, but I do sometimes have fantasies about the future, like, maybe if I live over near that part of Ecuador, maybe I might have a monkey friend that comes around and hangs out. I love monkeys. It'd be cool to have some pet monkeys. And what if I had a big enough land where I could protect nature and I could make sure that, on the greater majority of my land, nothing ever gets built there. And if I own it, my kids own it, it's going to stay a sacred spot for animals forever. I think about those kind of things too. So anyway, I want to encourage you guys for, whatever it is that you, want to do in your life. I want you to think of the best possible outcome. Don't imagine that you're living in a tiny house if you truly want to live in a mansion, on a 300-acre farm or something, or a 1,000-acre farm. If that's what you really, truly want, don't downsize because of other people's opinions and ideas. And if you truly, really, really, really want to live in a tiny house, don't allow other people around you to talk about, let's get a 1,000-acre farm, because it's too much work. It's really, really too much work. And you don't need that much land. I saw a thing today. This guy has 1/4 of an acre and he grows everything in towers without dirt inside this massive, it's like a tent-like greenhouse. And this woman was going through picking and eating little leaves off of everything. And she was like, this is better tasting than anything I've ever bought at Whole Foods Market. How is that even possible? And she's like, now I realize that there's like a dirt taste in most of my food. And this is clean. There's like a clear and clean taste. And he built these towers to water every 20 to 30 minutes. He's watering the plants and the roots are growing. And when he wants to pick them out, he just grabs the plant, pulls it out, and the roots are there, but there's not one speck of dirt. And when there's no dirt, there's also no parasites. There's also no bugs. And there's no weeding to do. So I was showing that to my kid today. I'm like, you know what? This is exactly how I want to grow our food. This is it. I was thinking vertical farming, but these towers they're awesome. And he just plants the plants inside of husks of, or shells of coconuts. And I'm like, well, we live in coconut country, so there you go. We have coconuts everywhere. We could easily do this. So, I don't know how you guys what was your day like today? Did you guys have a good day? Did you relax? It was Sunday. My son and I decided to go shopping together. He was, for 2 days, like, I'm not going to go shopping with you. It's embarrassing shopping with my mom. And I'm like, well, if I go shopping, then I'm only going to get, like, not very much stuff because I can't carry it all. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll go with you. And we have these enormous bags that have the logo of our favorite store on it. So we can't bring it to the other store that we shop at a lot. But we took them so we could save plastic, save the environment, And I was so happy that he thought of it. I'm like, oh, that's so great. And we filled those things so full, like literally to the top. and each. I mean, they were so much. I mean, I can't believe we bought so much food. And it was $50. It was at the expensive store, and it was $50 less than at the non-expensive store. So now I'm starting to rethink my priorities, because the better store has better stuff. And we got some Smucker's brand jelly, or it was like the spreadable fruit. It has no, it doesn't have added stuff. It's only fruit. And we love that. We're like, oh my God, it's kind of expensive. And we wanted peanut butter, but for a big jar of Jif peanut butter, $15, because it's imported. So you guys think about me next time you buy a big thing of Peter Pan or Jif peanut butter at Walmart for $3. It was $15. It's $12 more than what I remember. I remember the big ones were like $5, but maybe $6 in some places, in some cities. But unbelievable, I was like, well, they do make peanut butter here in Ecuador, but they call it something different. It's mantequilla de mani, or mantequilla de cacahuate, which is the Indian word for peanut. It's like crazy, but in Peru it's different. It's all different words, and here it's different. It's like funny though. You'll see products in the store, and you'll have like the Quechua words, and you'll have Spanish words, and then sometimes they'll have English words on the package because they're trying to appeal to a wide audience. Like some of the things we bought today have 3 languages on them from this region, and including English. I thought that was pretty cool. So it was nice. I mean, I was able to get my juice, my naranja zanahoria, which is like orange and carrot juice. I haven't had this in years. And I didn't buy it, but they have kombucha. So I might go back there and get some kombucha. But it was nice. It was nice. We got Greek yogurt. We got steaks. We got a lot of tropical fruit, lots of mangoes, 2 different species of banana. That's one thing I like about here. I mean, you could go to the store and come back with 5 kinds of bananas. But it was good. It was kind of a mellow day. It was a mixed bag emotionally, a lot of tension for the morning part. I don't know what the astrology was, but I noticed a lot of emotional tension and stress and a ton of anxiety. And then in the afternoon, right when the sun was about to go down, it felt a lot better. It was a lot more emotionally mellow and stable, and then my son and I, we got home, and he's like, when we're there, he's like, let's get a beer. I'm like, all right. So we got a couple beers, and he's like, I want an apple pie. So we got this little apple pie. So we ate apple pie, drank beer together, and watched our videos on technology and glamping and gardening, as we're trying to figure out what kind of life we want. I'm like, well, if all my investments pan out, then where do we want to live, I don't want to just go buy whatever I want and then have him not happy. We have to be able to do activities. He's like, well, I kind of want a dog. All right, so now we need land. I kind of want to grow my own food. Well, we definitely need land for that. Well, maybe do we want animals? We're talking about that. Do we want goats? Yeah, maybe. They eat grass. They're good lawn mowers. They're fun company, actually. They're very sweet animals. Do we want sheep? Maybe. I don't know. You could get goat milk. I guess you can have sheep's milk too, but if we have all that, we're going to have to stay there. Llamas. I love llamas. They're sweet as hell. They're some of the sweetest animals in the world. I mean, if they don't like you, they'll spit in your face, so that's not so sweet. So they do have an edge to them. And goats can butt you in the butt. They do. They love to do that. They ram their horns into you if they don't like you. So, I mean, okay, I like edgier animals. We're talking about getting a wolf. That's definitely an edgy animal. we don't want a wolf dog because wolf dogs are more vicious than, pure wolf is more mellow, or a pure dog would be mellow-ish. But when they're mixed, it's like kind of crazy. So we've been talking about all this kind of stuff. It's like, So I don't have any information for you guys from heartmath.org. There just really is nothing at all available. So I don't know what's going on with their system, but for 6 places on Earth, I cannot give you the Schumann Resonance. Darn it. But for the 7th one in Italy, I can tell you exactly what went on there. What they said. Let's see here. All right. Oh, darn it. Okay. Oh, yeah, you guys, I saw Ocean Spray cranberry sauce in a can today at the store. They have a lot of imports for the gringos at Super Maxi. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen that in years. And I'm like, should we get it? And they were like, no, because, the fresh stuff is better and you can get cranberries here, but but it was like for a few moments we're like, huh. Do you want Oregon cranberries? Or they're pretty good. I love cranberries, but in the end we didn't get. I found moringa though. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of zija juice, but zija is what the African people call this tree, and they discovered years ago. And if you guys ever get a chance to get moringa powder, it's really healthy. Really, really good. A lot of minerals and vitamins in it. A lot of vitamin A and a lot of potassium. It's very good for you. But I'm excited. I can't wait to have it. I just bought it. I was like, I'm going to have as soon as I'm done with my show now, I'm going to make a big glass of this moringa juice. Moringa officinalis is this tree, and they discovered it was growing in the most impoverished regions of Africa. People were going blind, babies were being born, everyone was malnourished. You know, the pictures of the kids with the enormous stomachs, and you're like, with the really skinny limbs, and it's like, well, how could they be so fat and so skinny at once? And then I found out, so I was like, this doesn't make sense. How are they starving if they're so fat? But, when I was really young, I used to be really annoyed by that. It really upset me because it didn't ever make any sense. No one explained it until later. Someone actually did. They said, no, it's their stomachs are distended because they're malnourished. They probably have parasites. There's some issues going on. And then, Americans, don't know anything about what's going on in people there. And they're all lactose intolerant. And let's just send them a bunch of milk. That's what they need. They're babies. They need milk. It gave him diarrhea, made him sicker. It was like ridiculous. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was a long time ago. But what they discovered, and this is so incredible, is someone discovered once in a while people would be eating the leaves off this tree. And someone's like, well, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's just the, like the zija trees or whatever. And something like that. I think that was their name, but it's the Moringa officinalis. So someone started testing it. And they're like, oh, okay, this is actually not only edible, it's actually healthier than the majority of vegetables. And so they started harvesting it, and they started widespread giving it to all the people in that region. Made everybody actually nutritionally sound. A lot of people who had been blind reversed their blindness. They ended up being extremely healthy. And that was it. I mean, then they all had energy for farming and gardening, and people were helping them more and more with other things. But when they discovered it, it was like this massive discovery. And now it grows on the equator all the way around the world. And I'm glad that they just started harvesting it here. I never saw it there before. I was like, no way, there's moringa here. It has a really good flavor, almost like pineapple. The leaves have this fantastic flavor. It's really, really good. And so I'm like, yeah, it's so nice. $3 for a bag. It's going to last me for a couple of months, actually. So it wasn't bad. I'm like, this is really good. It might reverse some of the eye issues I've been having, although, thank you God, I've only had to use my glasses once. probably in the past month, 3 weeks. And today was the first day I had to use them because there was this stuff that was supposed to be for females. I don't know what it is, and I'm just curious, and I thought, I like the packaging. I'm like, what is this stuff? So I had to put on, but the letters were so small, like extraordinary small, so I had to wear glasses to see it. But other than that, I'm able to read everything without it now. But I know that the Moringa will completely reverse it all the way back. So I'm excited about it. I know I have malnourishment as far as getting all my minerals because there's not any good mineral supplements here. Like if you find a good mineral supplement, it has all the vitamins, and so you're not getting as many minerals. And I'm like, I want 2 separate things, and I'm just not finding it. Yeah, someday I will. Oh, Allah. God wills it, I will. Anyway, today on disclosurenews.it at 9 in the morning, they say, today is the 17th, lately a day of recurring Schumann Resonance activity, and the movement started yesterday, continued uninterrupted. The peaks are not at very high values, and basically 37 Hertz frequency was what was reached right at midnight. The values remained constant around power 30 or 30 Hertz frequency. And then the evening report was the strong activity seemed to have ended at 9 UTC today, lasted for 20 hours. That's pretty cool. The highest peaks occurred in its initial part, which took place yesterday. Today's the highest value was power 30 was as previously reported. So basically in the past 24 hours, power 37 or 37 Hertz frequency. So pretty cool. I keep trying to reload HeartMath, and their equipment's just down. All right, in A Course in Miracles, we are on lesson 160. And the main idea today is, I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. And then it goes on to say, fear is a stranger to the ways of love. If you identify with fear, you will be a stranger to yourself. And thus you are unknown to you. What is yourself remains an alien to the part of you which thinks that it is real, but different from yourself. Who could be sane in such a circumstance? Who but a madman could believe he is what he is not and judge against himself? There is a stranger in our midst who comes from an idea so foreign to the truth, he speaks a different language, looks upon a world truth does not know, and understands what truth regards as senseless. Stranger yet, he doesn't recognize to whom he comes, and yet maintains his home belongs to him, while he is an alien now who is at home. While he is alien now who is at home. And yet how easy it would be to say, this is my home, here I belong, and I will not leave because a madman says I must. It's very interesting. It goes on, of course. Let's see how long this one is. 10 paragraphs. It's not terribly long. All right. And then just, I am at home. Fear is a stranger here. It's very interesting. So if you're interested in reading the rest of this one, acim.org. It's free, lesson 160. Or you can download A Course in Miracles in app form. There's many different ones to choose from. It's all the same information. So pick the one with the prettiest designs and colors. All right, guys, I'm going to attempt tonight to talk to this warrior. I was saying he was an Incan warrior earlier, and he was kind of trying to say, yeah, but it turns out, I found out when he lived, he told me, and then I asked God because he wasn't really sure, because the calendar obviously wasn't in Ecuador, the one that was going around the world, or at least the European part of the world, because not the whole world did not agree on one calendar, But I started asking him some questions, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how long people have been here in Ecuador and at what point in time did he live. I've already connected with him, so he's willing to talk about his life and what it was like. And he was a tribal person, indigenous guy, and he was a warrior, and he told me his name and where he lived, and we're going to have a little bit more of a conversation when I come back right after these messages. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you. All right, guys, I am here with the Indigenous warrior. His name is Nyata Panchungarata. That's what he told me. And he was born in the year 1438, and he died in 1475. And I had to ask God when he was born and when he lived, because the calendar, obviously everyone had a different calendar back then. So basically what happened is the Incans came to conquer and rule Ecuador in 1463. So he lived in that time when the Incans he knew a time in which there were no Incans here. And then the Incans came. And the Incans themselves, they came in 1463 and ruled until 1532. So only about 70 years were the Incans here. And then I think, is that right? So 40, yeah, it's about right. And then later in the 1500s, the Spaniards, conquistadors, they landed in Panama and came down to South America, south from Panama, which is, if you look at a map, Ecuador is just below Colombia, and right above Colombia is basically Panama, and Costa Rica. So the really skinny lands that connect the Americas are right above Colombia. And Venezuela is to the right, Colombia is to the left on the map. And Ecuador is just below Colombia. Okay, so what he told me, I asked him, how long ago did he live? He didn't really know. He said, he tried to tell me, but he's like, I don't know in your years, so I had to look it up. So I had to ask God, but, excuse me. Basically, he told me that he was a warrior and a farmer. And I asked him some of the tribal names that I saw here, and he seemed to respond to the tribal name Licto, Licto, or with an S, like if there's more than one person, the Lictos, Lictos. Not a Spanish name, it's a, it's their tribal name, it's there from their language. And they were Highlanders, because he told me he grew up and he was born near the Chimborazo volcano. And that is the highest peak in the Andes Mountains. I think in all of South America, definitely in Ecuador, it's the tallest peak. And so he was a Highlander, and they were some of the fiercest warriors in Ecuador. And as far as how long people have lived here in Ecuador, scientists have estimated, archaeologists have said, between 10,000 and 11,000 years ago, people moved here. So that's like pretty long. I told you guys that the Otavalo market has been in business every single day for the past 4,000 years. So Ecuador is a pretty ancient country as far as, how old it is. The city I live in was founded by the Spaniards 550 years ago. And we have been free of Spanish rule here in this city for 199 years. Next year is going to be a massive blowout party. I can't wait to go to the Fiesta de las Patriotas, the festival of the patriots, basically. the fathers, the people who pretty much kicked the Spaniards' butts and got them out of here. So it's pretty exciting. But so we're going to talk to Niata Panchun Garata, and his first name is Nya''ta, Niata Panchun Garata. That's what he told me his name was. Pretty cool, right? Really cool name. So I'm going to send him to the light when we're done with this, because he deserves after all this time. But I'm going to talk about his life, how he died. I'm going to try to channel him, because he's very quiet and sweet. He's got such a loving energy. And he's been hanging out with me for about 4 days now. And my son has come in here a couple times just to look out the window. And he's like, wait a minute, there's someone standing in the room. Why is this guy standing here? Like, so I'm going to interview him soon. And he said he agreed to it. He said, what's a few more days? It's already been, my God, for almost 600 years, 540 years he's been dead. And he's been looking for a way to get to the light this whole time. So he doesn't seem like he's a ghost that's angry. He's just kind of confused about what happened. And, we're going to send him to light at the end. So, all right, I'll ask him if he wants to go right now, if he wants to hang out with me more. But I will when he wants to. I'll let him go, obviously. All right, so we're going to get down to put the phone down. All right. All right, Niata, am I connected with you? He says yes. Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you questions, and can you answer? And he says, yeah. He's like shaking his head. So this is hard because I don't know his language. He doesn't speak Spanish. He speaks, is it Quechua? He's shaking his head. So we're going to have to do it with emotional feelings, and I'm going to understand the language, but it's going to be a little bit different than usual because he won't be speaking to me in English. It's just, we have to figure it out. Okay, so tell me what your life was like when you were a little boy. In the late 1400s. I guess you didn't know the calendar, but when you were little, what was your life like? He said we lived among the mountains and we enjoyed the cool breezes. We would run and run and run in the fields. I played with my brothers, and we really enjoyed our time together. We thought those days would never end. We had the sun on our faces and the wind at our backs, and we ran as fast and as hard as we could, and we laughed and we laughed and laughed into the wind. We really had a good time. We would sit quietly, sometimes the vicuñas, and you guys, vicuña is what's the word? Is it annelid? I don't know. A vicuña is an animal. It's like a llama, but it's not domesticated. It's wild, and they're smaller than llamas, and they're adorable. They're so cute, and they're related to camels. And they were a lot of wild vicuñas a long time ago. And then after the Spanish conquistadors and all the people came through, the Incans and then the conquistadors and all that, a lot of the vicuñas had been hunted for food, and they were going extinct. So there's now in the mountains near Chimborazo, which is a volcano, it's a dormant volcano. Now there's like a park there, and they are reintroducing the vicuñas back into the area. They had captured some from Peru, and then they put them on this land so that they could, interbreed and then, breed and then end up having more, just to reintroduce the vicuñas back to an area where they used to always be. And I saw the vicuñas in the wild in Peru, and they were so cute. I mean, you're just like, oh my gosh. They're wild animals, but they look like little tiny llamas. They're just super cute. All right. And they're very fast. But people in Peru, at least, they put they run up behind them and they put like a bag over their head. And then they take them and they shave their hair when it's hot out. And then they put the vicuñas back, and then the vicuñas will regrow their hair, and their hair is like, they don't hurt the vicuñas, they just shave them, which is so, it seems weird and mean, but it's it's like alpaca fur is better than llama fur, and vicuña fur is the highest quality out of all of them. And so if you buy a blanket made from vicuña fur, it could be up to, and they don't use the skin, just the hair, and they weave it. And it's really soft, it's luxurious, and it's like a bed for a blanket for a big huge bed would be like $4,000, because they have to capture these wild animals and shave them and then put them back in the wild, and it's like a lot of work. Anyway, I just want to tell you so you guys know what a vicuña is. Okay, go ahead, Niata. Okay, we would sit and we would watch the vicuñas, and we would watch as the sun sets in the sky, and our world was so peaceful, so very peaceful. And we grew up happy. We loved our family. We loved our village, the people in our world. We were very peaceful people. But they did train me and my brothers to be warriors, because we always felt that we should be on guard just in case, but plan for peace, or plan for times without peace, but live our day-to-day lives in peace. That was pretty much our philosophy, that living a peaceful lifestyle and enjoying our family and our time and loving the land was the best that we could do for the world that we found ourselves in. We loved our Mother Earth so much, and we would watch the moon at night. We sometimes had fires, and we would sing, and sometimes we would dance, and we had our festivals. And my grandmother raised the plants that she would grow. He's showing me, there's these they're like little tubers. They're like kind of long, skinny potatoes, and they come in different colors, like purple and yellowish, like a pale, like a butter color, and white, and sometimes they're like kind of off-white with hot pink flecks of spots on them. And I've had them. They're very strange. They're like a cross between a potato and a carrot, even though they're not. They're like completely, I think they're related to potatoes, but they're not at all like a carrot in flavor. They're good. They're strange, but they're good. And he's kind of showing me this, that he's showing like his grandmother washing them with like river water, and then she would make those. And he's showing me beans. They had beans and corn, and sometimes they would eat the corn on the cob, and sometimes they would crush it. And he's showing me like a stone, grinder, and that she would make like flat cakes, like not really a tortilla, but kind of thicker than that, and that she would make that for the kids. And you're saying with lime, yeah, okay. He's saying sometimes they would eat that with lime juice that they traded with other tribal people that were from the south, and he would. And he says sometimes from the north. I guess the limes grow up there too, and so they would eat these with lime, these things, and sometimes they would catch fish from the rivers, and sometimes I think the ponds. Yeah, he's saying like the ponds or lakes. But there's not, I think it's more rivers up there, but he was showing me what looks like a big, big pond, but it's kind of a small lake, or, in the middle somehow. And he says his mother was a weaver. She would make the clothes, and she and some of the other women would get together, and they would make the hairs into the string, and then they would make that into clothing, and they would make it very beautiful. And he's showing me that they dyed the fabric with berries. All right, what else? We want to know more. And he says his father was a great hunter. He was a warrior, and he taught him how to go vicuña hunting like his grandfather had taught him before. And so how did you do it? Okay. I was like trying to, me, I was like, oh, maybe they're on horses, right? No, he's showing me they're hunting. They had like weapons. Okay, he's like showing me they're kind of like javelins, and they would put the sharp rocks at the end, and they would tie them really tight with the fabric that his mom made out of vicuña fur, actually, he's saying. And they and he's showing me other animals, like I think it's a sheep. Okay, yeah, he's like showing me like a sheep that they would, I guess they would use the wool. And they would make extra padding in the bottom of their shoes that they made, their leather shoes. And they would put the padding from the sheep in the bottom of their shoes so they would walk more quiet, so the vicuña wouldn't hear them. And they had to walk with the wind. The wind had to be coming at them, because if the wind was going towards the vicuña, he's saying that the vicuña could hear them, that they could hear hear them coming. So they had to make sure the wind was blowing in their faces, and it was really hard to see sometimes because it gets very cold. And they would walk with these sticks, like these spears, and the extra padding in their shoes would make it so they would be less loud. Like that's like so clever, right? See, I don't know anything about this culture. I've never met people from up there yet, because I haven't explored the tribal people here. So this is cool. And let alone 600 years ago. So he's saying that he would walk, and they would crouch down, and there was these long, very tall grass, and he's showing me it's kind of like a blonde colored plant, like reeds, or okay, so I think it's reeds because it's growing on the side of like this. He's showing me like this body of water, and they would have to hide among the reeds so the vicuña wouldn't see them, and they wouldn't smell them because the wind would be blowing at them And they would smell the vicuñas, though, on the wind. And they got very good where a vicuña was very far away and they couldn't see it, but they could smell it, and they go, "Ah, yeah, it's in this direction." And they got very, very good at tracking the animals. And he's saying that they would capture them sometimes just for the fur. And he's like, "No." Oh, interesting. He says they would try to capture them if they found like a nursing mother. They would try to bring the mother and make sure the babies would follow, and then they would try. They could never really domesticate them, but they tried. And sometimes they would keep the mother penned up to have milk sometimes for extra protein, because plants don't grow in that elevation very well. It's only like the tubers, and he showed me corn and beans and those and like potato like things, and I think also potatoes. There's like 1,000 different varieties of potatoes in Peru. I think it's the same maybe here. So maybe even more than that. And they're all different. Some of them are purple, some are white, some are pink, some are red. It's very, the potatoes here are amazing. All right, so it's an Irish person's dream. So he's showing me that they're crouching down and they're very quiet and they motion to each other and they're very silent. And they will sometimes go with ropes and sometimes with spears. If they wanted the vicuña meat, they would throw the spear at the neck where it meets the body, and then they would track it until it died and bled out, and then they would carry the animal back, and the women would take the hide and they would turn that into fur, like coats and clothes, and then they would eat the meat and they would dry it out. So he's saying that they would have the fresh meat, but then the rest they would hang and they would dry it out, and they packed it with with ahi. I bet that was so good. Ahi is like a pepper here. It's so good. It's the best flavor pepper I've ever had. They're very, very spicy. And if you touch where an ahi was on a plate or something with your fingers, and you could wash your hands 10 times and still touch your eye, and you're just going to be in pain for like 20 minutes. It's like terrible, but that way. But excellent ahi peppers are like, my son and I, we mix it. We chop ahis in cream cheese and we make a dip. Sometimes it's super good. But okay, so he's showing me. They would take in, they would slice the meat very thin, and they would pack it with. He's showing me different herbs, like different peppers and ahi and garlic. I think it looks like garlic. It's something that looks like shallots, like a kind of onion that grows here that's long and skinny, but it's nothing I've ever seen here. But I think it's actually bigger, like huge. Maybe they're leeks is what he's showing me. He doesn't know the name for them, but he's showing me an image of them. So, okay, and they would chop everything really fine and cover the meat, he's saying, for 2 whole days, and then they would hang it out to dry. And they would, then when they were ready to eat it, they would soak it in water, and then they would cook it over a fire. And that's how they ate it. So it's basically like they made vicuña jerky. But then they would reconstitute it a little bit. And he's saying that they would chop it up very fine. And he looks like he's putting it in quinoa. So like they would make it with the grains and the tubers and the corn and the potatoes and the beans. And they would cut the meat really fine. And it'd have all that flavor in it of the hot and spicy ahi and different things. It looks amazing. But vicuña meat, I haven't had vicuña, you guys. I've eaten alpaca when I was in Peru, which made me feel really guilty because I just hugged a whole bunch of them. Llama, you can eat llama meat and alpaca meat, and I ate alpaca meat. And it was a little sweet, but very dense in protein and soft. It was a good meat. really good, but it made me kind of sad because, and it was a slightly bit gamey, not a lot, but just a little bit gamey. And I think it could be depending on how it's prepared, but it's not anything I want to eat again. It made me sad because I love these very gentle and sweet animals, even though they have that edgy spitting thing. When they trust and love you, they're just the sweetest animals, and they're so soft, and they love to be cuddled and caressed when they're domesticated. And they'll like wrap their giant necks around you. It's so cute. So they like hug you. It's really adorable. So you'll see. So show me what else. Okay. Okay, he's showing me that they would make clothing for like the tribe, but then also they would trade some of their clothing with other tribal peoples, you know, for different things. They trade it for other clothing, or trade like with the tribe who makes shoes, and everyone has a specialty. He's showing me that he really liked a pair of, it looks like they're like suede, almost like a moccasin type of shoe. And he's showing me a plant. I don't understand what kind of plant this is. Nyata, I don't understand. I've never seen that before. He's showing me a root of a plant. They dug up it almost looks like a mandrake, but I don't know. There's these plants that grow next to where they lived near water, and they dig them up, and the roots are black, and I don't know if that's the soil or what on the roots, but he said that they would cut them up and boil it until it's thick and black, and it had almost like tar kind of energy to it. And they would take the leather shoes, and they would like the moccasins that, you know, that's not what they call them, that's just what I'm referring to. So so you guys understand. And they would dip just the bottom part in this hot, sticky, gooey plant stuff, and they would let it dry, and then they would do it again. And he's saying that they would do 10 or 12 passes, and that would make like a sole for the shoes, so they could go farther, and the shoes would last longer. So that's really cool. I didn't know about that either. So what else? He's showing me that they would had brightly colored fabrics sometimes, and they would trade it with other people for their shoes. And he liked a pair that had like the suede, and but the bottoms, they had to add the plant stuff to it. But his favorite pair of shoes had rabbit fur, and he's saying he really liked the feeling of it because it was very soft and very easy to walk in. And they would use the laces to tie it up, was made with the leather. They would just cut the long strips of leather, and the laces were leather laces in the leather. So he said it's very soft. And then he showed me what it looks like when they got old, where the furry part of the suede would go, you know, after it got wet. You know, you guys know how this turns out, how it gets kind of old. But he said even then it was still very soft. And he's showing me something that they rubbed on it from the animal, from the brains. He's like, yeah, okay, this is what they do in the Plains Indians or Native Americans in North Dakota and Minnesota also, and is when the women would tan the hides with brains from the animal. Every part of the animal is used. So he's showing me that even though the shoes were old, the women would revitalize them by rubbing brains into the fabric. So that made it more pliable and soft. And they would dry it by the fire, but not too close, because they don't want it to dry too fast. And then he's showing me, he said sometimes it would smell weird, but it made it really nice for tracking animals when you're a hunter warrior, because then you smell like an animal more, and that made it easier to capture. He said, but we didn't take vicuñas very often, and he's saying that they left a sacrifice to Pachamama, basically to the earth. And he's showing me that they would take, every time they would get a harvest of any kind, they would take the best of everything that they got. And he's showing me roughly like 10% of their food, they had a big bowl, a big flat bowl. It looks like it's made from clay, and they had an offering rock that they would put the big round bowl onto, and it would have all of the best of the best. And they knew that when their offering was accepted, that the birds would come and they would eat and peck away at like the corn and all the different things, and they would pray that would happen because they wanted to share with nature, and that was their bounty for Mother Earth, for Pachamama. And he says, and you see, in this way we lived in harmony with our surroundings and our land, and it was, he said, it's like our native version of good karma. So he loved it. He would sit and he would hide. He said he had like a deer tarp that he and his brothers, when they're very little, when they're toddlers, he said that the littlest kids were allowed because they would never scare the birds. Oh, and he showed me even condors sometimes would come around when there was meat on the tray. But they had this little, it's not like a teepee, but it was almost like a, I don't know how to, it's almost like conic but flat on the top. And it would go across, and it could fit 2 or 3 little, tiny little boys in, and it was a color of the earth. It was made with very old leather. Oh, and he's saying from the warrior men, when their shoes wore out, they would sometimes sew these together for the little boys to watch when the animals come to eat the offering. And so, but they had to hide so the birds wouldn't see them, and they had one little slit in the front, and they would peek out. They would like peep out. It's so cute. This is so adorable what he's showing me. They would just peep out and watch the birds come and all the animals come and eat from the tray. And one time he said that a deer came and ate from there, and they laughed so hard and they startled the deer. And the deer started to go away, and his grandmother gave him a very stern look, like, you don't interrupt an animal when it's eating from the offering tray. So that's so cute. So what happened when you were older then? So you grew up. He says, yeah, my brothers and I, we grew up and we became very strong, and we were very proud of ourselves because we had good muscles and white teeth. And he's showing me his brother had really, he doesn't know what he looked like, but he knows his brother had really thick eyebrows. And he's showing me his very thick eyebrows. I think he made fun of his brother for that because it wasn't very common in his tribe. So he's kind of showing me how they kind of tease each other. And he would tease his brother about having his nose was like a bird-like beak, is what he's saying. So he made fun of his brother, and he says, I don't know, maybe my nose was the same. I could kind of see it a little bit, but just a native nose. He's very handsome, and his brother was really handsome. And so he was like, yeah, we were really like the best of friends, but we're kind of always teasing each other like rivals. Well, that's normal. He said he had a much younger brother that hung out with more like his cousins, but he and his brother were almost 3 years apart from each other, but they like 2.5 to 3 years apart, and they were like almost like twins, and they were inseparable, best of friends. And so what else? Oh, and he says at night, especially on the colder nights, they would stay inside their house. And he showed me that their house looks like it's made from, was it branches of trees and like twigs, the smaller plants that they gathered from the river, and they made these shelters, and sometimes they threw animal tarps on them, like animal skin tarps. And what else? And then sometimes he said that for a while they had a cloth door that his grandmother wove, and around the opening of the door they had flowers and different symbols that meant it was basically from their tribe, but from their family. He said that they had, all the tribal people had, like each family had their own, but his family was pretty extended. There was a lot of people, and it was like just kind of round, and he's showing me that they had, I hope, I'd like to go up to Quito and see if this is if I could substantiate this, would be awesome. But he's saying that they were, they all pretty much they had bedding that they put on the floor around the edges of the tent, and then the centers where they had chairs that they made. He showed me sometimes people would like make chairs out of rocks, or they make them out of sticks, branches, and these really super hard reeds that grow near the pond where they lived. And they had like mats they made, that their grandmother and his mother, they made these just kind of like sitting mats, and they made them very comfortable. And sometimes they had fur on them, or fur inside them, like from sheep. Sometimes, I think he's showing me. It's hard to see. But he said they were comfortable. They were always very comfortable. And they sit around, and their place was so big they could put a fire in the middle. Was there a hole at the top? He's saying, yeah, it was like a hole at the top of the structures to let the smoke out. And they would sit around, and the grandmother and the grandfather would take turns telling stories, and the other elders from other families would come, and they would sometimes have big gatherings with everybody in the tribe together, but that was just once or twice a week. But the rest of the time they were all together, just the family and extended family under one. So he's like, if there were married couples and they had their children stay with them in a little part of it, it was a pretty big structure. He says maybe 20 people, maybe 30 would stay in this. So it's like pretty interesting. So can you tell me what happened when you grew up? He says he watched his father die. He got sick and he was coughing a lot. And when his father died, they had a ceremony for him, and then he became the in charge. Were you the chief? He says no. He says only of the family. He was in charge of the family. He became the man. He was older, and his brother was younger than him. The one that was closer in age to him. And then they had their younger brother. And he said that, so what else? So what else happened after that? He said the Incans came, and they had to go to war with them, and it was the first time they'd ever seen anything like that. They were upset because they were encroaching upon their land, and they wanted to make their empire. They wanted to settle. And what happened was, let's see, I have it here. I can give you guys a little bit of a, let's see here. Trying to see, I'm looking this on Wikipedia. I had this queued up. I don't know. The Incans, when they came, I'm trying to see who. I know it's like Wanacapac was one of the guys at the end. They were here for like, yeah, okay, it says, the present Republic of Ecuador is at the heart of the region where a wide variety of civilizations developed for millennia. During the pre-Inca period, people lived in clans, which formed great tribes, some allied with each other to form powerful confederations, as the Confederation of Quito. And by the way, the word Quito in Spanish means I quit, but it is not a Spanish word. It's taken from Quitus, which is the name of one of the tribes there, long before Spanish was spoken here. So, but none of the confederations could resist the formidable momentum of the Tawantinsuyu, which is basically the Grand Incan Empire. The invasion of the Inca in the 15th century was very painful and bloody, but once occupied by the Quito hosts of Huayna Capac, the Incas developed an extensive administration, and then they began to colonize the region. See, there was two brothers, okay, it doesn't say. So, okay, yeah, there were two brothers and in the Incas, and one of the brothers, he was here, and he was like making it, like holding, they made it, they loved it so much, they made Quito Cusco was the number one, like, governmental head of the Incan Empire, basically. And then the second one was Quito because they fell in love with the city. But the brother who ended up living here was like, he was starting to feel like it was the error of the ways. And the second brother came from Cusco, and he said, you have to conquer these people, and we have to make this whole thing an Incan world. And he said, I don't agree because I love these people and I love this area, basically. And they fought, the two brothers fought. And when I think it was Huayna Capac, he killed his brother. And when he killed his brother, then that was the end of the Incan Empire here, basically. And that's the way I understand it. I don't know if that's 100% correct, but it's kind of the way that I understand it. Now, this person that we're talking to now, Niata, he did not see the fall of the Incan Empire. Okay, so he died in 1475, and the Incan Empire went until 1532. And then the Spaniards came towards the end of that. So it was like the Incans came to conquer the people, and then the Spaniards came and conquered the Incans, but it was like it was kind of overlapping, but not very much. Okay, so can you tell me more about your adulthood, Nyata? He says, I took a wife. I had a little girl and a little boy. Another little girl. And any more? He says, no, just the three. So 2 girls and a boy. He says he was happy to be able to raise his son as a warrior like him. Oh, but he's like saying, but my daughters were they were the love of my life. They were the loves of my life. He said, I really loved my wife, but my children, my little girls they were like, he's not saying this, but he's kind of like the apple of my eye type of energy. Like, he said, oh, he's saying they were my little papitas, my little potatoes. He's like, you know, it's he's not saying papitas because obviously it's not, you know, he wouldn't be in Spanish, but he's like showing me these little pink potatoes. And so he's like saying they were my little pink potatoes. That's what he called them, like, because they were always blushing. Their cheeks would get blush, but also because of the wind there, that a lot of times their cheeks would get really red and chafed because the winds were very strong. And so it was something that it happened to most of the people there. And he's showing that they had special medicine that they had to rub on their cheeks at night when they fell asleep. And he's showing me it's the oil that they use to cook, but I think it's from an oil from the meat somehow. And he's showing me some herbs and plants that they use to put on their little cheeks. And oh, interesting. It was like a mint. He's showing me that they rubbed a kind of a mint on his little girl's feet, and then they would wrap their feet in cloth. And if it was very cold, they would put the shoes on. But they had the house shoes that were only inside, and the shoes that were for outside. But he said that they would rub mint on the bottoms of their feet to make sure that they always were healthy and strong. So that sounds really interesting. So then he's showing me they had these long strips of kind of off-white cloth that they wove, the simple cloth he calls it, and they wrapped the feet in that. He said they very rarely got sick. They were very healthy people overall. And if they did get sick, they would also rub the mint on their foreheads and on their chest. And he was showing me it's not a traditional mint like we think. It's like something that grows just like a wild herb. It just grows everywhere. He's showing me that they would boil water and make a tea out of it too. And it was part of their tradition. And they found sugar cane, I think he's showing me. He says it was very sweet, so I'm thinking it's sugar cane. And because it looks like I've had sugar cane, it's very good. And so he said that they would chop that with this other plant. And then the adults would add something else that looked like a bitter root. He's saying it's like a bitter root. And it was like, like chicory maybe. Or maybe, but he's showing me something that's brown. Is it coffee? He's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. Oh, they put mint in their coffee? Oh, interesting. And so he's showing me the tea that they made, and it's like basically a coffee tea combined. Oh, that sounds really good. Mint coffee, I never thought about that. And he said there's these yellow flowers that they would put in it sometimes too, in this, like, I guess the equivalent of springtime or summer when they grow. All right, interesting. So what happened when you died? He said it was a horrible battle. And even though they thought they were great warriors, they weren't prepared. And were you on horses? He says, no. We were just, and were the Incans on horses? He said, no. There were just so many of them. He's showing me there's all these men. They had, it looked like blood smeared on their chests. They have bare chests and they have blood smeared on them, but then they think it was actually berry juice, but they were very scared and it intimidated them. And they were wondering why did they go without shirts, because it was cold. And he's showing that he got a spear to his right side. Oh, yeah, he's showing me his wound now. I'm showing my eyes so I could see in my mind's eye. And it's like I could see where the blood was just pouring out of his right side. And he couldn't get back to his camp, and he fainted because of the pain and all the blood loss. And he doesn't really know what happened to his body. He didn't see it, or he can't remember. And he said, I guess it was such a loss because I'm feeling his pain now. He's saying his wife and his daughters with their rosy cheeks and his little son, that was the last thought that he had. He just hoped that they knew that he loved them with all of his might. And he doesn't really know what happened to them because he didn't see them again after that. He just said that it was just all these men. He's showing all the men in the row, and they just came and they kept marching and marching and marching. And he said the one that was in charge, he thought it was maybe the chief, at least of that part of the Incan people, and he had like a white, he said it was like a white robe, but when he stretched it out, he could see that is on the inside, there was like the feathers of a condor was the pattern sewn into this white robe. And he said it was magnificent, and he was taken aback, like, so many men, why are they covered in blood, like all these thoughts. And then this man stepped forward, and he was in charge of everyone, and he took off this beautiful white, like kind of like a cape, and he showed the condor, and he thinks he was using some kind of magic to get everybody riled up on his side. And they knew what they were doing, their purpose, they had their mind set completely. And he listened to me read that book yesterday, so he's kind of saying, like, he feels like that's what happened, like they used their will and their energy of what their mind wanted, and it just overpowered them because they weren't expecting it. It just came, and all the people from his village, they had been out just doing their thing, like, he said they were vicuña hunting when the people came up just so fast. And he feels that's what happened, that they just killed him and his friends, and he thinks his wife and kids were safe because they were pretty far away from them, but he's not really sure, and he's been worried about them ever since. And he says, now that you told me how old I am, or how long it's been since I died, then I know that they aren't here anymore now. That's why he decided to find me to go to the light. Oh, Nyata, thank you so much for explaining your story. Before you go, do you want to tell us about the spirituality and the spiritual beliefs of your people? He says, yeah, I would like to. And if you want to talk to me again, I'm going to put you into the light, but so you could go and be reunited with your family, but you could always come back and I can channel you again. He says, oh, that's great. I would love that. Okay. So, but tell me first about the spirituality part, yeah? Okay. He said we had an energy that we all shared, and we talked about it. The elders talked about it. It was like, he showed me like a very dark bluish purple, and also with a reddish violet energy on top of that. And when they would sit in an oval shape in their lodge, sometimes he would see it, and it would go like from the center of their chest, like their heart, but then it would kind of extend out in front of them like about 1.5 feet. And he saw this energy in a circle, and he feels that this was the energy of love that held them all together and made them a family unit in the tribe. And then the greater tribe, he's saying there was like an orange and a red energy that surrounded the outside, and he thinks that the witches of the, they were like or wizards or brujos would come, and they would around the tribe. They had the red and the orange energy up. It would be like a warning energy, and he could see energy, and he saw it all the time when he'd go outside and then leave the tribe, and then he'd come back. He'd see like this red and orange energy around the outside. But when you get inside, there's also blue and green energy, and it's very peaceful and very calm. And among his immediate family, it was just absolutely this purple, very high vibration. And he always saw that when they would pray together, they would put their hands down, palms down on their legs, like by their knees, and they would pray and they would hum together. And this humming would make sure that they were all vibrating in unison together. And they would hum while imagining love in the center of the room, and then exploding out. Not really exploding, but it would like go to the center and then flow up to the top, and then it would come down the sides of the teepee. Or no, I'm sorry, it's not like a teepee. It's like a kind of like a tent-like shelter, but it was round. It wasn't called a teepee, obviously, but he's showing me that it goes up and then it came back around, and then they would cover the earth with an energy of green, which was healing, like the mint plant that they used. And they all had to imagine it. And then in the center, there was like the pole that held the whole thing up, and that was white energy is what they imagined on that. And they would, so like they would give the first best pieces of meat to the condors, which are like vultures. They're enormous. They're like, their wings are like 18 feet across. They're huge, huge birds. I saw them when we were in Peru, and we were talking about going to see them again here in Ecuador. Condors are really beautiful birds. So he said they give the best cut of meat to the condors. Oh, and he said, and we would ask that the condor would bring, in return as a favor, to bring the good, to ask the Great Spirit in the sky, basically, to protect them all. And they would feed the condor, because the condor had the strongest wings and can fly to heaven, to ask God to protect them, basically. So the second best cut of meat, they would hold in the best esteem, and they would put it very high up on the pole in the center of their lodging, because that was for their ancestors to gather around, because they always wanted their ancestors to be with them, so that they were strengthened as a family unit by always remembering to feed their ancestors. And at the bottom of the pole, they would put bowls of corn and beans and these potatoes, like tubers, and a bowl of mint, so that in the afterlife, their ancestors would always be healthy. And he showed me garlic and ahi and the ground maize that they turn into bread. And so he says that he's showing me there's like a bunch of bowls that they look like they're made from clay, and they were very plain and simple. They were simple bowls. They didn't think about decorating them like some tribes, but they just put them around the central pole, and that was the family. For the ancestors. But sometimes if they had animals, like that were pets. Did you have dogs? No. Did you have cats? Yeah, he says sometimes they have cats, and they would come around, and when the cats would eat from those bowls, they knew that the ancestors were with them, so they just allowed it. And he showed me sometimes rats would come, and that was also from the ancestors. So if any animal, like even if it's a small mouse or something, they would allow it, because it would be a sign that the ancestors wanted to commune with them and be with them. And depending on the animal and the time of day, that meant something. Oh, that's very interesting. Sometimes it was a warning, or sometimes it was, and so they paid attention. And he says, was it one of your aunts? One of his aunts would write down, like she would like draw in the dirt with a stick, like inside the lodging. And it's like, he said near the door that was like all dirt. They had rugs everywhere else, but she would like take notes of what the animals were, and then they would get together, and the tribal leaders would get together and kind of decide what it meant, if anything. You know, what kind of animal at what time. And so they kind of used that. It was like their magic. In the clouds, they would see signs as well as warnings, and they thought something was going to happen when the Incas came, but they didn't know exactly what the Incas were. Like, so they didn't quite understand how to read the signs. They just knew that they needed to get vicuñas for meat so that they could be safe and have, because they thought they might not have a time in the future to hunt, which it turned out to be clear. But they were overtaken by the Incas and they were killed, and so they didn't get the meat to their families in time. And that's basically what happened. All right, you guys, I'm going to release him to the light. He says after the recording. I guess he wants to talk to me more. All right, well, there it is. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was very interesting for me. It gives us some insight as to how people lived almost 600 years ago in the highest part of the Andes Mountains here in Ecuador. It's very interesting. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to tell you guys tomorrow. He's going to tell me what they believe so that I could help him in the correct way. Okay, he says he might want to stay with me another day. He's enjoyed his time with me so far. All right. Okay, Niata Panchun Garata. Thank you so much for being with us and telling us more about your culture and your life. You've preserved a piece of history that most people don't know. In fact, maybe no one knew. He says, yeah, Aicha. Are you saying like Aicha? Aicha Acha Chinta China. Oh, I know who he's related to. He's like saying like Aicha Acha Chinta China means, at least in Chiricahua Apache tribe, that means I hope that we see each other if we both live that long. I will see you again if we both should live so long. He's saying, yeah. How do you know that? Oh, it's so weird. I know that there were people that when the Spaniards came, they went from Peru all the way to the Four Corners. So maybe some of his people escaped, and maybe that's where this comes from. That might be Quechua, the Apache. That's very interesting. I know my friend her mom is Peruvian, and she speaks Spanish, and yet she grew up in New Mexico, and was shocked to find out that's where they get the blue corn of the Hopis and all the tribal people there. It all came from the purple corn given to, the Incas back in the day from the aliens. So from the extraterrestrials, that's a whole nother thing. But you guys got to go read or go listen to The Purple Passions of Peru to hear about that. I talked about all the purple gifts that the aliens came and gave. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode tonight. I love you guys. Thank you for being my listener and for favoriting or subscribing or whatever it's called on your app. And thank you for forwarding it to like-minded folks as well and your Facebook groups and all that. There you have it. I hope you had a lovely Sunday. I love you guys so, so much. And I'll be back tomorrow with all unique and original programming. We are continuing, I believe, with it's either part 9 or part 10 tomorrow with, The Spirits book by Allan Kardec. So that's going to be tomorrow. And that's it. I'm signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the Holy Fifth Dimension. Until next time, guys, peace. Aicha Acha Chinta China. That's from Niata. Do you ever wish you could look into the next chapter in your book of life and see what's coming next? What does the universe have in store for you? I can help you with that. I will give you a Celtic cross reading, which is 10 cards, or you can ask me 3 questions, and I use 3 cards per question. So that's 9 cards, or I can channel your higher guidance, or maybe God directly for you. Maybe you want to talk to your dear departed Aunt Edna, because maybe you have a few questions and she was the smartest person you knew. If your deceased relatives are available or your ascended masters, I can channel them for you personally. Let me have 1 hour to show you the future in your next chapter of your book of life. Readings are $75, and it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to complete. And for this price, you will also be hooked up to the healing grid around the planet for free, which means yours truly, me, I will be giving you Reiki 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. All you have to do is let me know. metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and we will explore your future together.